All right, so get ready to dive deep today because we are going to be talking all about intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
That thing that everybody's been buzzing about.
Yeah.
It's, your meals strategically.
Mhm.
Sometimes they call it time-restricted feeding, but
Mhm.
we're all thinking the same thing.
Mhm.
Fasting, but
Mhm.
make it trendy.
It's really having a moment, isn't it? But, there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah.
And what we want to do today is really get beyond the headlines and into the nitty-gritty
Mm-hmm.
of how intermittent fasting, or IIF as the cool kids call it,
Right.
actually works.
Yeah.
And so the roadmap for this deep dive is Andrew Huberman's podcast
Okay.
called Effects of Fasting and Time-Restricted Eating on Fat Loss and Health.
Awesome.
Get ready for some serious aha moments because things aren't always what they seem.
Yeah, I love it when we get to kind of debunk some of these myths around what we think we know
Mm-hmm.
and what the research actually says. So
Absolutely.
let's unpack this.
Yeah.
First off, it's not just about what you eat,
Right.
but when you eat.
Yes.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right?
No,
It's
yeah.
not just calories in, calories out.
Mm-hmm.
It's about aligning your eating with your body's natural rhythms.
Absolutely. And Huberman really highlights some fascinating research from Satchin Panda
Okay.
that just drives this point home.
That's right.
So in one study, Panda found that mice eating a high-fat diet actually stayed healthier when they had what?
Time-restricted feeding.
That's right. And get this, the mice with just unlimited access to food, even on a normal diet,
Oh, wow.
ended up with health problems.
That's wild.
Why?
So even if you're eating healthy foods, if you're snacking all day long, you're throwing your body's internal clock out of whack.
Exactly. And that internal clock is known as our circadian rhythm.
Right.
And Panda's research shows that about 80% of our genes operate on this 24-hour cycle.
Wow.
So when you eat out of sync with this rhythm,
Yeah.
it disrupts just this whole cascade of processes within your body.
Oh, man. So that's a big takeaway for me. It's like,
Yeah.
if we're trying to be healthy,
Mm-hmm.
meal timing matters
It does.
just as much as food choices.
Precisely.
Okay, cool.
Now, here's where things get even more intriguing.
Okay.
You've probably heard that 8-hour eating window touted as like the magic solution, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
turns out might not be that simple.
Yeah, I love this little anecdote that he shares
Yeah.
about how that 8-hour window in Panda's study wasn't actually chosen
Right.
based on, some sort of like scientific breakthrough.
Right.
It was actually a logistical constraint.
Uh-huh.
It was the researcher's partner
Mm.
basically setting an 8-hour limit
Yeah.
for lab time.
That's right.
Like, okay, honey, you got to be home for dinner.
Right. So, the 8-hour window is a good starting point, but the real key here is to align your eating with your own
Right.
sleep cycle and activity levels.
So it's really personalized.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so that deep fasting, that period during sleep, where our bodies are supposed to be in repair and rejuvenation mode, eating too close to bedtime disrupts that, right?
Right. So it's like giving your body conflicting signals.
Totally.
Okay.
And if you're interested in exploring this further, Huberman mentions a great resource called My Circadian Clock. It's this website just packed with info on finding your own unique rhythm.
Perfect. Love it when he gives us resources like that.
Me too.
Okay. So let's talk about what different eating windows actually look like.
Okay.
He breaks it down into a best, better, worst scenario.
Right.
And I'm already rethinking my own habits.
Yeah, let's walk through it.
Okay.
The best scenario for maximizing those fasting benefits is a midday eating window, something like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
This allows for the longest overnight fast, giving your body ample time to do its thing.
But let's be real. For most of us, a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. eating window is a social suicide mission.
You're not going to be winning any popularity contests, turning down dinner with friends at 7 p.m.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the better option, which balances fasting with social life, is shifting that window to the early afternoon and evening, say 2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Right.
And then, of course, the worst scenario is eating late into the night,
Right.
essentially sacrificing that crucial sleep-related fasting we talked about.
Got it.
And remember, consistency is key here.
Yeah.
Huberman points out that if your eating window is, shifting all over the place, especially on weekends, it's like giving yourself jet lag. All those carefully established rhythms just get thrown off.
Okay, so we've talked weight loss. We've talked syncing up with our circadian rhythms. But here's where I get really excited.
Oh, okay.
Huberman dives into the surprising health benefits of F that go way beyond just weight management.
Yes.
We're talking liver health, gut health, even reducing your risk of fatty liver disease.
It's amazing, isn't it? And a lot of this comes down to the fact that intermittent fasting reduces inflammation throughout the body. And that, in turn, has just a direct positive impact on your liver and gut.
Yeah, there's even research showing that brown fat, the good fat that burns calories,
Yes.
actually plays a role in preventing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
And guess what? Intermittent fasting can boost brown fat.
Oh.
So you're not only getting those deep fasting benefits, but also potentially giving your metabolism a boost as well.
So all good things.
It seems that way.
Okay, this is all amazing.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people worry about IF messing with their hormones, especially testosterone.
Yeah.
What does the research say about that?
That's a great question, and it's something that Huberman addresses head on.
Okay.
He brings up a study on elite cyclists where IF did reduce testosterone levels.
Okay.
However, it also significantly lowered cortisol, the stress hormone.
Interesting. So it's about balance?
It is.
Cortisol and testosterone kind of work in opposition, so the lower cortisol could offset any potential negative effects from the testosterone dip.
Exactly. And Huberman emphasizes that for most people, an 8-hour or longer eating window is likely to be hormone-friendly.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
But now let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
What really breaks a fast?
Right.
Is it as simple as avoiding food during your fasting window?
Well, it turns out it's trickier than you might think.
Okay.
Huberman explains that just because you've stopped eating doesn't mean you're instantly in a fasted state.
Right.
Like, digestion takes time. So you're actually still in a fed state for a while after your last bite.
Mind blown.
Oh, right.
So what determines how quickly we transition to a fasted state?
Yeah.
Is it different for everyone?
It is the size of your meal, the amount of fat it contains, even the types of food.
Right.
All play a role.
Wow.
And get this, even just 1 gram of sugar after a meal can disrupt your circadian genes.
Wait, seriously? Just 1 gram? That's crazy. I'm never looking at my after-dinner mint the same way again.
I know, right?
Wow.
It really highlights how sensitive our bodies are to these inputs.
Yeah.
And here's another curveball.
Okay.
Saunas can actually spike your blood glucose levels.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I have to give up my sauna routine.
Oh, no, don't worry.
Okay, good.
Huberman enjoys saunas, too.
Okay.
It's more about just being aware of these effects and understanding that finding what works for you is key.
Okay, good. I was getting a little nervous there.
Yeah.
All right, so are there any hacks to speed up the fasting process? For those times when we accidentally eat a little too late.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Huberman shares some great tips.
Awesome.
For example, a 30-minute walk after a meal can help with glucose clearance.
Okay.
Even simpler, squeezing some lemon juice into water or adding a pinch of salt can help stabilize your blood sugar.
Salt, really?
Yep. It can act as a mild glucose disposal agent.
Interesting.
And Huberman also mentions stronger glucose disposal agents like berberine and metformin, but with the very important caveat that you should always consult with a doctor before trying any new supplements or medications.
Word. Safety first. Always.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm a data nerd, so I love that he mentioned an app called Zero.
Yes.
To help track your fasting periods.
Yes.
Again, no affiliation, just a cool resource.
It's very helpful. It can be really helpful to just see those patterns and just get a better understanding of your body's responses.
Yeah, awesome.
But amidst all the tools and strategies, the most important things, understanding your own body.
Right.
And experimenting safely.
Absolutely.
So let's address a common misconception.
Yeah.
Many people think anything other than water will break their fast.
Right.
But as we've discussed, the line between fed and fasted isn't always so clear-cut.
Right. It's less about a strict on-off switch and more about understanding the nuance of how your body processes different things.
Exactly.
Does that mean my morning coffee with a splash of cream is ruining my fast? What about those sugar-free sweeteners?
Okay.
Help us navigate this gray area.
Well, artificial sweeteners may not impact your blood glucose the same way as sugar does.
Right.
But some people find that even the taste of something sweet can trigger their appetite.
Right. So it becomes a psychological factor as well.
It does.
If that little bit of sweetener makes you crave more food, it's probably best to avoid it.
Probably.
During your fasting window.
Yeah, and Huberman emphasizes individual responses vary.
Okay.
A little artificial sweetener might not affect some people,
Yeah.
while others find it throws them off completely.
Got it.
It's all about self-awareness
Mhm.
and experimentation.
Right.
So what about other things we might not think of as food,
Yeah.
but that could potentially affect our fasted state?
Yeah.
Huberman mentioned brushing your teeth.
Okay.
He made it very clear that unless you're swallowing toothpaste, brushing your teeth won't break your fast. But that half glass of wine after dinner,
Oh.
different story.
Right.
Alcohol will definitely spike your blood sugar and disrupt those fasting benefits.
No surprise there.
Right.
But this next one really surprised me.
Okay.
He talked about wearing a continuous glucose monitor while taking a sauna.
Mm-hmm.
And he discovered that saunas can significantly increase blood glucose levels.
It's amazing what we're learning about these seemingly unrelated activities, isn't it?
I know, right?
But don't worry, Huberman acknowledges that saunas have other health benefits,
Okay.
that might outweigh the temporary blood sugar spike.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about weighing the pros and cons and
Well,
finding what works for you and your overall health goals.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah,
I'm not quite ready to part with my sauna time just yet.
I hear you.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. The science, the myths, practical tips, and even some surprising findings.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it all comes back to applying this knowledge to your own life.
Absolutely. And Huberman actually highlighted two really valuable resources for anyone that wants to explore IF further.
Yeah.
The My Circadian Clock website for personalized guidance on circadian rhythms.
Right.
And the Zero app
Yeah.
for tracking your fasting periods.
Love that he gives us such actionable advice.
I know, right? And accessible resources.
Yeah.
They're both free and easy to use.
Awesome. I love it.
So amidst all this, one of my biggest takeaways is the importance of self-experimentation.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
No.
It's about paying attention to your body signals, experimenting safely,
Yeah.
and finding a rhythm that works for you.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, there's
Yeah.
one more fascinating aspect of IF
Okay.
that we need to touch on.
Right.
He briefly mentioned it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it deserves more attention.
Okay.
The concept of fat fasting.
You read my mind.
Arr. Tell me more about this fat fasting magic.
So it's all about adjusting the types of food you eat
Okay.
within your eating window to influence how quickly you transition from a fed to a fasted state.
Gotcha.
We know digestion takes time,
Yeah.
and certain foods, particularly those high in fat,
Okay.
take longer to digest.
That makes sense. I always feel fuller longer
Uh,
after a meal with healthy fats.
Exactly. So the idea behind fat fasting is that strategically incorporating more healthy fats into your meals,
Okay.
especially towards the end of your eating window, can extend the time your body spends in a fasted state.
Interesting. So it's like easing into the fasting period without those like intense hunger pangs.
Right. And some people even incorporate what are called medium chain triglycerides or MCTs into their diet to further enhance fat burning during their fasting window.
Okay. So now I'm no scientist, but wouldn't that technically break your fast
Yeah.
if you're still consuming calories from fat?
That's a great question, and it really highlights the complexity of this whole fed versus fasted state.
Right.
While technically you are still consuming calories,
Yeah.
fat's impact on blood glucose levels is much less than carbohydrates or protein.
That's sure.
So, your body might still be technically fed,
Right.
but functioning in a way that's closer to a fasted state.
Okay. So like almost tricking it in a way
In a way.
to get those benefits.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And this is where metabolic flexibility comes in, which is training your body to efficiently switch between using glucose and fat as fuel,
Wow.
depending on what's available.
There's so much more to IF than just skipping meals.
It really is, isn't it? It's about understanding the intricate interplay between food timing and your body's internal processes.
And ultimately, it's about empowering yourself
Yeah.
to make informed decisions about your health.
Absolutely. But as always, we need to emphasize the importance of listening to your body
Yes.
and consulting with a healthcare professional
Yes.
before making any major changes.
Great advice. Love it.
Now, I know we've covered a ton of information, so
Yeah.
let's take a moment to recap
Okay.
the key takeaways.
Right. So key takeaway number 1.
When it comes to intermittent fasting, remember, it's not just about what you eat,
Right.
But when you eat,
Got it.
aligning your eating window with your sleep cycle and activity levels is key for maximizing those fasting benefits.
Key takeaway number 2.
And while the 8-hour eating window is a good starting point,
Yeah.
it's not a magic number for everyone.
No.
Okay, what else?
Consistency is key.
Yes.
Avoid shifting your eating window around too much, especially on weekends.
All those rhythms we talked about.
Right.
Got to keep them consistent.
Yeah. So IF has a ton of surprising health perks beyond weight management.
It does.
Improved liver health, gut health, and even a boosted metabolism.
That's right.
And as for concerns about IF affecting your hormones, the research is more nuanced than you might think.
It is. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah, and just because you stopped eating doesn't mean you're instantly in a fasted state.
Right. Digestion takes time.
Yeah.
And certain foods, especially those higher in fat, can extend the time your body spends fasting.
Right.
And speaking of fat,
Yes.
we explored the concept of fat fasting and how strategically incorporating more healthy fats into your meals can gently ease you into the fasting period.
I like it.
But as always, listen to your body.
Yes.
If a particular strategy or food choice isn't working for you, don't force it.
Right.
Experiment, adjust, and find what feels right for you.
Yes.
And remember those helpful resources Huberman mentioned?
Yes.
The My Circadian Clock website and the Zero app?
Yep.
They're great tools for personalizing your approach to IF.
Love it.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into intermittent fasting,
Yeah.
I'm curious what stands out to you.
Right. What aspect of IF intrigues you the most? And what small experiment could you try this week to see how it affects you?
It really does make you think, doesn't it?
It does.
There are so many different ways to approach IF.
Yeah,
And what works for one person might not work for another.
totally. So it's not about finding the perfect plan. It's about finding what fits into your life and supports your goals. Do you thrive on structure and like the idea of a clearly defined eating window?
Yeah,
Or are you more of an intuitive eater who prefers flexibility?
that's right.
You know, figuring out your personal preferences is key.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Right.
Maybe you try shifting your eating window a bit earlier and see how it affects your energy levels throughout the day.
Yeah.
Or maybe you incorporate that 30-minute walk after dinner a few times this week and see if it improves your digestion.
Oh, I love those ideas. Small tweaks can make a big difference.
They can.
I'm thinking of trying that early eating window experiment myself. I'm curious to see if it impacts my sleep.
I bet you'll learn a lot about yourself in the process.
And hey, if you discover something amazing, share it with us in the comments.
Yeah.
You know, we'd love to hear about your experiences
We would.
and any aha moments you have along the way.
It's always more fun to geek out about this stuff together.
Definitely. But remember, this deep dive was just based on one source.
Right.
There's a whole world of knowledge out there
So much to learn.
waiting to be explored.
So little time, but that's what makes it so exciting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep diving deep. Until next time.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? There are so many different ways to approach IF, and what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. It's not about finding the perfect plan.
Right.
It's about finding what fits into your life and supports your goals.
Right.
Do you thrive on structure and like the idea of a clearly defined eating window? Or are you more of an intuitive eater who prefers flexibility?
Yeah.
You know, figuring out your personal preference is key.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Right.
Maybe you try shifting your eating window a bit earlier and see how it affects your energy levels throughout the day. Or maybe you incorporate that 30-minute walk after dinner a few times this week and see if it improves your digestion.
Oh, I love those ideas. Small tweaks can make a big difference.
They can.
I'm thinking of trying that early eating window experiment myself. I'm curious to see if it impacts my sleep.
I bet you'll learn a lot about yourself in the process.
And hey,
Yeah.
if you discover something amazing, share it with us in the comments.
Yes.
You know, we'd love to hear about your experiences
We would.
and any aha moments you have along the way.
It's always more fun to geek out about this stuff together.
Definitely. But remember, this deep dive was just based on one source.
Right.
There's a whole world of knowledge out there
So much to learn.
waiting to be explored.
So little time, but that's what makes it so exciting, right? Exactly.
What?
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep diving deep. Until next time.
Yeah, and remember, this is just scratching the surface.
Right.
You know, intermittent fasting is a whole world unto itself.
There's so much more out there.
Yeah, so keep exploring.
Keep asking those questions.
Keep those aha moments coming.
And as always, keep diving deep. We'll see you